Good evening, everybody, and Happy New Year. After exactly 100 days of stewardship of your Ottawa Senators, I'm excited today to announce the appointment of Steve Staios as General Manager and President of Hockey Operations, as well as Dave Poulin as Vice President of Hockey Operations. This move is consistent with the vision of having hockey operations managed by two first-class individuals who will collaborate, complement each other in establishing a stable foundation for our hockey operation. I've known Dave Poulin for the past 14 years when Dave was Vice President of Hockey Operations for the Toronto Maple Leafs. We spent a lot of time over 5 years at the AHL Board of Governor meetings when he oversaw the Toronto Marlies, and we were both members of the Executive Committee of the American Hockey League. In Steve, I see Steve as a natural to be our general manager. He spent the last 2 months rolling up his sleeves, working diligently to better understand the needs of our team. He knows this team better than anybody else I know. When you think about our team today, our assistant coach, Hall of Famer Daniel Alfredson, to Coach Jacques Martin, our winningest coach in Sens history, to Ryan Bonus, our associate general manager who won 2 cups with Pittsburgh before joining us, and now David and Steve Staios. We've created a hockey ops environment with a common culture of care, passion, hard work, experience, collaboration, and incredible competitive fire too. I've learned in my first 100 days, which is exactly today, and understand this team a lot better now. Stability is not a word that has been synonymous with this organization. So my New Year's resolution as we enter 2024 will be to make stability part of our fans' vocabulary for years to come. So with that, I want to introduce Steve and Dave.
Thank you, Michael. It's an exciting day for me. I think as Michael and I talked about structure within the organization and looking at all options, it became evident that when we talked about a person like Dave Poulin and bringing in the leadership and the experience, the great hockey mind, shared belief and philosophy and core values, it was an exciting opportunity, I think, for us to be able to look down that path. Michael had approached me as we talked about other candidates and how we wanted to structure this about being the full-time general manager. I was open to options on how this structure was going to work, but I'm pleased to take on that responsibility. It's a big job, and I'm looking forward to the challenge and of moving forward with this group. To be able to do this with Dave Poulin and Ryan Bonus, who's not here today, who's out working, he's out scouting, and putting together that foundation of a staff, I think, gives me great confidence that we can move this thing forward. I think up until this point in time, we've been able to manage to a certain degree. We've been able to continue to work with this current staff that I have and hardworking staff that I have, but adding Pulin is a great pillar for our organization throughout. Again, he comes with great integrity, great experience, and just a wonderful addition to our group. So I'll pass it on to Dave.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Michael, for this opportunity to join the group. Michael and I, as he said, have worked together before, pretty detailed with the Executive Committee of the American Hockey League, and got to know each other and stayed in touch over the years. Stevie, when he retired, joined the Toronto Maple Leafs, and Brian Burke brought him into my office one day, and he said, "Here you go." And then he walked out. And I looked at Steve and said, "What are you going to do?" And he said, "I don't know. What are we going to do?" And that started a relationship in 2012 that has continued to this day. We've had a lot of long conversations in our various posts through the hockey world. I'd also like to thank Stu Johnson and the TSN group. This came unexpectedly in many manners, and I enjoyed my 10 years immensely, worked with some great people at TSN, so a big thank you there as well for their support. This is a unique opportunity for me. I've had a different seat for the last 10 years. I've got to watch hockey in a very objective view. And I wasn't tied to a team. I wasn't tied to a group. I wasn't tied to wins and losses. I simply watched and commented and thought about the game and saw the way different teams were built and saw what was successful and what wasn't successful. And it added a piece I feel that really helped all the other pieces I had, the playing piece, the coaching piece, the managing piece, the fan piece that I'll never lose. And when this opportunity came, I felt it's a chance to be a part of something really special here in Ottawa. And this is a talented young group. They are young, and there have been many challenges for them this year, but I believe the future is incredibly bright from both an individual standpoint and a team structure standpoint. And the two gentlemen I'm sitting with have done it right at different levels of the hockey world. They've won at different levels of the hockey world, and I believe we'll win at this level. But just really, really happy to be a part of it. I do have a strong tie to the Ottawa area. Both my parents were from here. I spent all my time here as a youth in the West End and have remained close to people in Ottawa, still have family here. So it feels good. It feels very good to be joining the group.
Great, thank you very much. We'll now open the floor to questions. To help those people watching at home, if you'd please introduce yourself prior to your question. And we'll start over to your left, gentlemen.
Yeah, Ian Mendes with the Athletic. If it's okay, can I ask one question to each guy?
All right, yeah.
So I have one for each of you. I'll start with you, Michael. You had talked about in the past you liked the idea of the two-headed monster, I think you called it, right? With president of hockey operations, one person, general manager, separate person. Why did you feel okay with this, with Steve kind of going with this model?
Well, exactly that. So it stays with the same vision of the two-headed monster, and it was a fluid, approach to the whole decision-making process. But the more we looked at things, the more I realized that Steve's passion, from all aspects, player relationship with the players, communication with the coaches, his experience with agents who he had in the OHL. It's just his passion. He's really good at it. Like I said, he's a natural. And for me, I want to do what people feel most comfortable in doing. That's how you succeed when you're passionate what you're doing, and I feel that Steve brings that. But as I said before, this is a two-headed monster. This is not something that you can do single-handedly. So now the task was, how do we find somebody that can complement Steve, has the same philosophy, same vision, and I've had the pleasure of knowing, as I said, Dave for many years, and it's not as if I hadn't been, having people come email me and ask, and show their level of interest. But to me, and the fact that they know each other, I think they complement each other perfectly for this organization.
And Steve, my question for you is, you just mentioned that, last couple months you've just been able to sort of manage things. Now, do you feel like it's kind of full steam ahead and you can really put your fingerprints on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think this really stabilizes the management structure for us, and it's a big job. There's a lot of work to be done, and having Poulin alongside and doing the work with us, along with Ryan Bonus and the rest of the staff, I think that now it's an opportunity for us to move forward.
And Dave, my question for you is, did you talk to Keith Jones at all in the last week or two, because he kind of did something similar, moving from broadcast?
I did not in the last, this accelerated very quickly in the past little while. And I have talked to Jonesy since he's taken the job. I played with Keith in Washington, and I've known him a long time. And we talked, but more right when he took the job, not recently.
I spoke to Jonesy in the last World Cup meetings. Unbeknownst to Dave.
Yeah. Question for Steve, Wayne Scanlon, Sportsnet. Just wondering what you think your priority is now, and kind of as a follow-up to that, I think every time we talk to you, we ask you about your assessment of the team and the core. The team continues to struggle a little bit. What is your view? Is this still the right group, and what has to be added to it?
Yeah, I think the next priority is to, we make a change in the coaching staff, and so I'm waiting to see this resonate with this group. It's obviously a different approach with Jacques and Alfie and Cappy. The dynamics have changed. We've talked about adding discipline and structure to our game. I think we've seen some signs of it. 2 games prior to our last game, looked like it was maybe moving in the right direction. We dropped off again. So I think time will tell. But I think there's got to be an element. We talk about process a lot. And to make an evaluation on something without all the information is not the right way to do it. So I want to see how this coaching staff can resonate with this group. I know they're sending the right message. We got to learn how to play the right way. We can have all the talent in the world. You see the National Hockey League, watch games every night, and if you drop off just a little bit in your gameplay, there's relatively no chance of winning. And so we have to still build that up. I believe we have the right coaching staff in place to implement those right core values to play the right way. And then as time goes on, then you start to evaluate the roster. And you see how everybody fits in and what the dynamics are and what changes may need to be made at that point. So I hope that answers it, Wayne, but it's just sort of that's still part of the process as we sit right now.
Hey, Kyle Lacoste from Sportsnet. Dave, congratulations. I'm just curious, like you talked about all the different lenses with which you viewed the game over your years, part of it. With how quickly, as you say, it all came together, like what was, I guess, the most attractive part in your mind for being a part of the organization?
The people I'll be working with, Kyle. I've been really fortunate in my career. I've had this eclectic career. It hasn't been a straight line at all. I've done some things away from the game that have added to my skill set for the game. But this is about joining people. This is about Michael and Steve and the people they're putting in place. And I know them well, and this is an opportunity to be with what I believe is a very special group.
Claire Hanna with TSN, congratulations. We're going to
Thank
miss
you,
you,
Claire.
but looking forward to working with you again. This is for Steve. Michael mentioned you two complement each other. How do you envision each of your roles being separate and maybe similar within hockey operations?
Well, Pulin's going to be involved in all hockey ops decisions. Ultimately, it'll lay on, I'll make the final decision, but it's a collaborative approach. And I think far too often in the past here, if I could say it, I mean, it hasn't been that. Having a process and a collaborative approach to all of our decision making and creating that environment, I think, is hugely important. And I think that resonates with not only the staff and the players and the product on the ice. As far as the role, I think with Poulin, he'll be able to take a longer look at the long-term vision of the group and look at processes that we can put in place, look at areas of need that we've spoken about already on how we can build this up. We still need to build a foundation. There's areas of this organization where we still need to build a foundation. And Poulin will focus in on that along with the day-to-day hockey ops as well, but on the big vision and executing on the vision long-term for the group.
And just one quick follow-up, if you wouldn't mind, and I believe this is to Michael. Ryan Bonus, his job, does it change at all from becoming assistant to associate? Does that mean any more responsibilities?
Yeah, that question I'm going to deflect back to Steve. It was his decision.
Yeah, so I think when we're talking about structure and how we're putting this together and the opportunity to bring Dave on board, I think the world of Ryan Bonus. I think he adds a great deal to our group. In fact, when you start looking at other general manager candidates that we looked at across the league that we were open to maybe starting to talk to in a process, I kept turning back and saying, we have the candidate here. And Ryan has not been with the organization for very long. He came from a winning organization in Pittsburgh, 2 Stanley Cups. He's seen what it takes to be a strong front office and to move an organization along to championship form. So Ryan's elevated role, he'll be part of the collaborative with all my group that's here. We will collaborate and develop the processes to be best in class.
Lisa Wallace with Canadian Press. Congratulations, Dave. Question for you. You mentioned that you've had the opportunity to look through things through a different lens and maybe an unbiased lens. You've covered this team a fair amount. What are the things that you think you would either like to see changed or need to be changed when you talk to Michael and Steve at this point?
When you're putting a team together, tempting to look at all the pieces and think you have perfect pieces, but they're not perfect if they don't go together. And I think that's the challenge that a lot of teams face in the National Hockey League. So the process of starting to identify with our scouts, both pro and amateur, on what does an Ottawa Senator look like, and what are we looking to do here, and what are the necessary ingredients to be successful, and then finding the pieces that fit together, because it's not always what looks good on paper doesn't necessarily work on the ice. And on the player side of it, the consistency thing is the biggest factor. Every team in the National Hockey League is capable on a given night. And we watch it. And we watched wild swings. So we've got to better equip this group with how to handle those wild swings. Some of it's physical, some of it's mental, and some of it's flat out experience. You know, we ask a lot of a 20 or 21-year-old that we look at and take for granted. We'd like to accelerate that. Some of it does take time, but some of it can also be shared experience.
For Steve, you made the comment of talking about the roster, which is something we haven't really heard a lot of in the past. Is there potential that we could see movement if you feel some of these young players don't really feed into the big vision of success?
Well, inevitably, there's always roster movement. I think you bring up the young. I think your question is directed at the core of this group. I mean, I think that I'd like to see them with more time with Jacques and with Alfie and with Cap. I'll go back to that. I do think that there's potential that this core. I believe in the core. I believe that they have the potential to do it. They just haven't done it consistently. To Poulie's point about, is it experience? Is it accountability? Those are the types of things that we still need to evaluate moving forward to be able to make an accurate decision on, the roster in general. And so those core components, again, we believe in those core components. We believe in the character of them. They never cheat us on effort. I've said that to you before. I've never left the rink thinking that they didn't lay it on the line. It just hasn't worked so far yet with them. But inevitably, there's changes to rosters as you move forward. We'll have free agents. We'll look at all components of it and see where we maybe could tweak to help out this core roster to make sure that there is maybe some more experience or different components of players to make them successful.
Jules Desjardins, Radio-Canada. Monsieur Andlauer, en premier, qu'est-ce qui vous a amené à choisir M. Staios? Quels sont les éléments principaux qui vous ont éclairé?
Comme gérant, vous dites, parce que ça fait 7 ans que je suis avec Steve. Comme j'ai dit, pour moi, il était naturel. C'est sa passion. Il sait communiquer avec non seulement les joueurs, mais il a des bonnes relations avec les agents, qu'il avait les mêmes relations quand il était à la Ligue Ontario. Et il est bien respecté dans la communauté de hockey avec les autres gérants de la Ligue, qui fait que pour moi, c'était un choix naturel. Et puis, quand je lui ai demandé, il voulait le mandat.
Mr. Staios, what would be the first thing that you would do? Is it the coaching staff, or would it be permanent? Is there any changes coming up?
No plans on changing the coaching staff. I do think that they can implement the things that we're looking to implement for this group from now until the end of the season, and then we can take a longer look at it at that point.
Tim Baines from Post Media. A couple of questions for Dave. You talked about spending a lot of time when you were younger in Ottawa. Maybe be a little more specific. Schools, memories, anything that comes to mind?
My grandmother lived in a pretty, I think it's famous house in that she wouldn't sell the house. And the West End, it was on the corner of Byron and Richmond and Woodruff. And it took up the parking lot of a funeral home that I still believe is there. But her access to walk across the street and go to church was too valuable to her. So she hung on to that greenhouse on that corner, and I've told that story to people, and everyone seemed to know where the greenhouse was on the corner of Woodruff and Byron. And so I had a lot of good memories of going down to the Riverwalk from there, to the driveway, if you will, and to the Parliament buildings as a youth a number of times. just being a kid in the city of Ottawa at 6, 7, 8 years old.
Second question, why now? I'm sure there's been a temptation, maybe offers to come back to the NHL. Is it, why the itch now? Is there unfinished business for you?
That's part of it. And I have been a part of a Stanley Cup team. I was part of the Anaheim Ducks in 2007 in their Stanley Cup final against the Ottawa Senators. I went to the finals 3 times as a player. I went to the conference finals 6 times as a player and didn't win it as a player. That's a little bit of it. But this is, as I mentioned about the people, I think one of the skills that I really enjoy is the ability to ask the right question at the right time. And about finding answers, we've got to have the right questions. And I really enjoy that, and I've enjoyed my conversations over the years with Steve. I mean, we'd get together and have breakfast and talk about his junior team. And I really like the interactions we have, the discussions we have. We see alike on a lot of things, but we already challenge each other on a lot of things. But we did that when we weren't working together. So it was just like, why do you think that? Or how do you think that? Or what about this? And I think those are really healthy conversations to have in a management group.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Final take.
En français, pour Michael, juste la raison, pourquoi maintenant de décider, on confirme Steve comme directeur général à temps plein et non pas attendre la fin de la saison et peut-être regarder ailleurs pour un candidat?
Parce que j'en ai assez de faire des conférences de presse. C'est mes premiers 100 jours. Pour moi, c'est... Attendre trop longtemps, je crois que ça ne serait pas au bénéfice des joueurs qui sont jeunes, qui ont besoin d'avoir, comment on dit en français, mentorship. Et pour moi, l'attention à ces jeunes protégés, c'est important que ce soit... Et pour moi, Steve, il a tous les atouts pour et je crois que c'est notre meilleur candidat. Enfin, c'est mon instinct, mais surtout que maintenant, il a la relation avec ces joueurs-là. Alors pour moi, c'est plutôt maintenant que plus tard.
Et peut-être juste votre évaluation de ce que vous avez eu de l'équipe sur la glace dans ces 100 premiers jours-là. J'imagine que vous attendiez peut-être à un meilleur hockey que ça.
Comme je l'ai dit au premier press conference, j'avais dit que je suis ici pour apprendre. Mais je ne suis pas ici pour cette année, non seulement. Je suis ici pour long terme. Et comme j'ai dit plus tôt, c'est la stabilité qu'on veut établir et pour le long terme. Alors pour moi, c'est évident que je suis un fan et puis... j'aime pas ce que je vois souvent, mais la stabilité, c'est quelque chose que j'essaie de faire dans mes affaires et aussi dans le sport. Merci.
Just 2 for Steve here to wrap up. Just for clarity's sake, did you actually get to the point where you formally conducted interviews with candidates for the general manager position at any point in the last month or so?
No, we didn't. I think as we continue to discuss this, and then the idea of Dave coming on board, anytime we started to look at that position, you know, Michael was desirous of me being the general manager. I'm excited about the opportunity, and any of the candidates that we looked at, that's where we went back to Ryan Bonus, and we already have that internally. So we started looking at the structure and the foundation of that group and felt confident moving forward with that.
And my last question would be, how are you feeling about your salary cap situation heading into January when, you know, maybe at the point when you got to bring Pinto back in the fold and Matthew Joseph's healthy? How confident are you that you can kind of get everything done to kind of your level of satisfaction?
Well, it's challenging, but I'm confident that we can get it done. Yeah, I mean, there's... It's the situation that we've inherited and what we're in is not ideal, but certainly I'm confident that we'll be fine.